I'll bet you at some point this week, when you were scrolling your social media, you may have come across this video.
And so, I put it to you, ladies and gentlemen, there is only one thing we can do in this country to stop climate change, and that is to make scientific and technological breakthroughs that will create the clean energy that is not only clean, but also cheap. And the only thing that wokeness has to offer in exchange is to brainwash bright young minds like you to believe that you are victims, to believe that you have no agency, to believe that what you must do to improve the world is to complain, is to protest, is to throw soup on paintings. And we on this side of the House are not on this side of the House because we do not wish to improve the world. We sit on this side of the House because we know that the way to improve the world is to work, is to create, it is to build. And the problem with woke culture is that it's trained too many young minds like yours to forget about that. Thank you very much.
Well, who is that a plucky, well-dressed Brit over there at the Oxford Union? Where did he come from, and why did that speech resonate so much? Well, we'll be able to answer, hopefully, most of those questions. I'll start with the first one. It's Konstantin Kisin. He is a stand-up comedian, author of this book, An Immigrant's Love Letter to the West, which he actually gave me personally, and I loved the book. And he's also the host of the wildly popular Triggernometry podcast. You can find it at YouTube or wherever, and he joins us now. Konstantin, thank you for being here.
Good to be with you, Larry. Good to see you again.
Well, so that's the brief intro of who you are, but I think an important element of this story is where you came from. You weren't born in the West, per se, or in England. You're an immigrant, as your book suggests, from Russia. Do you think that informs your perspective on these things?
Well, it's not just being an immigrant from Russia, it's growing up in the Soviet Union and seeing an alternative to the system that we live in now. And of course it does. I mean, one of the things that I find quite stark and mind-boggling about the recent trends in the West is how little gratitude we express and feel for what we have. We forget that, we talk about, white privilege and male privilege, and we never talk about Western privilege. We never talk about the fact that we're all lucky. We're all incredibly privileged. We're all privileged in many, many ways. And I don't have that luxury. I saw, I remember walking through the streets of Moscow and many other former Soviet cities and watching people pick through bins for food and all sorts of terrible things going on. So I'm very grateful for what I have here.
And, it's funny. I feel like this resonated so much with people because it was so obviously logical and truthful. And it's the sort of thing I dare say that at Oxford or certainly any American college campus, it's not heard very much.
Yeah, perhaps. And I also think that the other reason is that, I actually tried to persuade people. We're all culpable of this, you and I and everybody else, I think, that we often, want to look good by destroying someone's argument.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't actually trying to look good. I was trying to persuade the people in the room and the people who I thought would watch later that there's a different way to think about things. And whether you think climate change is the most important issue in the world, or whether you don't, whether you have other things you care about, that's fine. We can all disagree. But the answer to those problems is not to protest and complain. It is to work hard. And one of the reasons I say that is I found in the process of building up our YouTube channel, running a small business, managing a team of people, trying to keep the lights on and people employed and so on and so forth, it kind of changes how you think about things. And you go, oh, maybe protesting isn't really the way to go around things. Maybe the way to do things is to work and to build and to create. And so I think that encouraging young people to see that things in that way will change how they think about the world as well.
Let's talk about the persuadability of the left. I think too often those of us on the right side of the political spectrum, and again, I think you say you identify as politically non-binary. I don't want to throw you into the right here. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, yeah.
But these days, if you're not identified with the woke radical left, then you might as well be a fascist, right? That's
Right.
how the conversation is engaged. And the other viral videos that we often see have, like, my friend Ben Shapiro debating and sort of owning somebody from the left, the whole facts don't care about your feelings mentality. But ultimately that might be cathartic and make us feel good about winning the fight. But what you're saying is it's not actually going to get anything done. We have to find some way to figure out what we agree on.
Yeah, and look, I don't think we should be overly idealistic. There are some woke extremists who are, they're the Taliban. You're not going to get them drinking beer and wearing shorts. That's not how they roll. But there is also a large group of people who sort of live under that woke Taliban, who, given the opportunity to be exposed to a different point of view and some facts and a logical argument, could change their mind. So, as you well know, the course of history is not determined by the majority of people. The majority of people are largely inert and somewhere in the middle, and we are arguing over their attention and their opinion.
Mhm.
And I think we've got to speak to them instead of speaking to ourselves, whether you're on the right like you, or whether you are, as you say, politically non-binary like me. It's very easy and very pleasant and very enjoyable to talk to people who go, yes, you're absolutely right, Larry, and everything you think. But we don't get very far. And I think it's time. And by the way, I hope you know that I'm not chastising you or your audience or anyone else, because I've been there, and the desire to win the argument and look good doing it's easy. On social media, it's easy. You put out something incendiary and you get loads of clicks and loads of attention. It's wonderful. But I'm starting to think that those of us who don't agree with the woke stuff, we have to start thinking, what is our positive message? What are we offering people? What are we saying to them? You want people to be conservative, Larry? Well, what's good about being conservative?
Right.
How is their life going to improve? That's what I think we got to start talking about.
Yeah, and by the way, you're here because I strive to achieve
I
what
know.
you're
Oh, I'm
talking
not having
about.
to go at you. I know.
Honestly, yeah, and that's the whole point. But I need to drill down on something you just said, because the fact is, we both dwell in the atmosphere of social media and YouTube and that universe. The people who express the outrage, the people who pound the desk, the people who get bulging veins and start yelling at the opposition, they're the ones who do. There's huge currency in that, Konstantin. That's where the clicks are. That's where the rewards are.
Well, I'd like to think that in the last week I've demonstrated otherwise, haven't I? I think
Actually,
I
I think that's
right.
fair to say.
So
Yeah.
and that's kind of what I'm really most pleased about, is like, let's have the conversation. Let's think about, what do we have to offer the world? What are we encouraging people to do? Because listen, these young woke millennials and the Gen Zers and whatever they are, they're going to be paying your pension and mine. So we need them to be better. We need them to step up. They're going to be running your country and my country 20, 30, 40 years from now. Oh, let's do anything we can, everything we can, to get them to see sense.
You focused in your 10-minute presentation there on climate change specifically, but this really is more about, as the subject of the debate was, the woke left. Here in America, one of the hottest topics, I'm sure you know, is the transgender and gender identity debate that has now made its way into our public schools. Sometimes a topic like that, engaging in it seems futile because it's so hard to persuade someone who is so locked in on something so personal.
Well, right. And we've got to learn to tell the difference. There are some people who, as you say, are activists, who are, like I said, the Taliban, and you're not going to
Yes.
persuade them.
Yeah.
But, we have a video on our channel with a woman who, at the time, that interview was very controversial, a woman called Posey Parker. Kelly J. Keene is her actual name. And the title of the episode is Trans Women Aren't Women. And it's three people, Francis, myself, and her, having quite a robust debate about that issue, and us being quite, challenging to her questions. Been seen by 1.3, 1.4 million people. And at the time we put it out, we had like 100,000 subscribers. So people are interested. People are there to be persuaded. People want to have the conversation. The people who watched that video, a lot of them didn't agree with it, but they wanted to see a rational discussion. And on the trans issue, I get the arguments, Larry. Like, that is an issue as a father of a young child. Like, I see the problems with that ideology and everything else. And it has to be defeated. But in my opinion, the best way to defeat it is through rational argument.
Well, and also to educate yourself, and you'll also get entertained while you're educated while watching the Trigonometry podcast at YouTube, and get Konstantin's book, again, An Immigrant Love Letter to the West. It'll make you feel good about being in America or in England, where we have a lot of viewers all of a sudden because we talked about Prince Harry and Meghan quite a bit. So we like that. Konstantin, great to see you again, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Larry. I appreciate it. All the best.
There is more to come. You're watching Salem News Channel. It's O'Connor Tonight.